What is up, y'all? This is the Philly Fly Show. We are kicking in at Right Way Production Studios. Back for another week of the greatest picks on earth, even though last week was just an absolute failure. I do have to start this out because I called out Josh Hokett, and he put on probably one of the best heavyweight fights we have seen in a long time. So, you are, sir, you are top 5. You can be top 5. But I wish you weren't fighting Derek Lewis at the White House. I wish you weren't fighting Derek Lewis at the White House. Yes, I will say that. We'll start off with the Josh Hokett fight and Curtis Blades. Curtis Blades just has not good enough striking to be a heavyweight anymore. Just got to take that away from him because he would land on Josh and it was nothing. Josh was rolling with the punches and doing all the good stuff. I will give him that. Only reason I don't want him fighting Derek Lewis in the White House cards is because Derek Lewis is washed up. We need to see this guy against some real talent. Nobody like Derek Lewis. So that's my only argument on that. I do want to shout out Chris Padilla and Markel Medeiros. That was a great fight, but dude, Padilla won that fight. That was BS. I called that a draw. Bull on the draw. And the Philly Fly Show did absolutely horrible, like I said. 4 for 11. Out of the picks if you count the Padilla one as a draw. If you count Padilla as a win, then it's 5 for 12. But it's the same exact percentage on the wins. And like I said, for the Joe Money Show, I totally shit the bed on that one. But here we are for another week. We're here. UFC Fight Night. Gilbert Burns versus Mike Malott in Canada. It's a decent fight card for a fight night, but I'm not too thrilled with the whole card that's put together for betting wise. It's not a great night for betting, so usually when that happens, I can usually do really good. It could be really bad like last week, but we are not gonna have a bad week again this week. We got 13 legs here. Let's just jump into it. We'll get right to it. Match number 13 is a bantamweight male division fight between Jamie Siraj and John Yanis. Jamie Siraj is 4-1 in his last 5, making his UFC debut with a 14-3 record. Coming off a 2-fight win streak. Not much known about him, but he's a negative 300 favorite, whereas Giannis is a plus 235 underdog. He's 3-2 in his last 5. 0-1 in his UFC debut, coming off a submission loss to Bashi, who is not a slouch to lose to, but John didn't show much of fight and showing us that he's got much talent. So that's why Jamie is a negative 300 favorite. Just looking like a way better prospect. I'm going to pick Jamie Siraj to win that fight. But, yeah, not much known about each of these guys. So, 1 out of 5 in the comments so that he can get his hand raised. Jump over to matchup number 2. We'll stay in the bantamweight male division. It is John Castaneda versus Mark Volgon. Now, Castaneda is a negative 134 favorite, whereas Mark's a plus 110 underdog. Look, man, John's 2-3 in his last 5, 4-4 in the UFC, and on a 2-fight lose streak, so he needs to get a win if he wants to probably even compete in the UFC anymore. And then you got Mark on the other side. He's 4-1 in his last 5, making his UFC debut. 12-4-1 for his record in pro MMA, but he's coming off a decision loss in Dana White's Contender Series, so still getting the call means he still's got the talent. He just came up short in his Dana White Contender Series fight. So he's got a good guy on the other side of him. I'm picking John to win. Even though John's on a 2-fight lose streak and he's 4-4 in the UFC, he's shown that he can compete with some of these good prospects. So he is on the older side. So it is a younger fighter versus an older fighter, but I still think John gets to win. 1 out of 5 in the comments. So he can get his hand raised. Now, match like number 11. Jump to the female side. It's a flyweight female fight between J.J. Aldridge and Jamie Lynn Horth. Jamie's a negative 158 favorite, whereas J.J. Aldridge is a plus 128 underdog. J.J. Aldridge is 3-2 in her last 5, 10-6 in the UFC, and coming off a decision win against Andrea Lee, which is not a bad win over a girl like her to get her name up there, but fighting a girl like Jamie Lynn Horth. Jamie Lynn Horth, 3-2 in her last 5. 4-2 in the UFC and coming off a 2-fight win streak. Yeah, I think Jamie gets a big win here. I think the odds makers got it wrong here. I think she should be more of like a 3-1 dog. But I like when the odds makers get it wrong because that means we can make some money off them most of the time. 3 out of 5 in the comments level. Jamie gets her hand raised. Now, matchup number 10 is a flyweight male division fight between Mitch Raposo and Alan Nascimento. Now, Mitch is a plus 164 underdog. Allen, negative 215 favorite. Mitch, 3-2 in his last 5, 1-2 in the UFC in his 3 fights, coming off a decision win. We'll see if he can. He also coaches somebody in the UFC that I cannot remember his name, but I just watched it a couple weeks ago and I saw Mitch and I was like, "Ooh, when's Mitch's next fight?" And I looked at him and I was like, "Oh, it's coming up." So it's cool to see Mitch back in there. He's got a good opponent on the other side of him in Nascimento. Mitch, though, like I said, coming off that decision win. Allen is 4-1 in his last 5, 4-1 in the UFC. So all 5 of his last 5 have been in the UFC, and he's on a 4-fight win streak. He hasn't fought some stiff competition yet, so this is the stiffest competition he's probably faced in Mitch Raposo. It's going to be a good banger fight for flyweight division. I think Mitch gets it done, though. I think his hand speed's just going to be too much for Allen. Allen might have power and more grappling background, but that hand speed by Mitch is always something to be fascinated by. So I'm going to pick Mitch 1-5 on a confidence level. He can get his hand raised. All right, jump back to the female side. We got Melissa Grodin and Daria Zalakukov. Now, Daria's a plus 124 underdog, whereas Melissa Grodin's a negative 160 favorite. It's a bantamweight female fight. I'm going Daria here. Her striking is fire. But we also got to do a little review here. We got Melissa. She's 3-2 in her last 5, 1-1 in the UFC, coming off a loss to Luana Santos, who is not a slouch to lose to, so it's not a bad loss. Daria, 3-2 in her last 5, 2-1 in the UFC, coming off a decision win. Daria's striking is just super, super elite, and I just think that's going to be too much for Melissa. If Melissa gets it to the ground, though, it's going to be a tough night for Daria. We'll jump to the matchup number 8 here. It's a heavyweight male division fight. We get Tanner Boser versus Gokhan Sarikhan. Now, Gokhan is a negative 170 favorite, whereas Tanner Boser is a plus 132 underdog. Tanner's 3-2 in his last 5, 5-5 for a UFC record, but he got cut from the UFC. Like 2 fights ago, he was in the UFC, but that was like about a year and a half ago. He gets cut from the UFC, gets a nice win and a decent promotion, and gets a call back to compete again. Gokhan, hold on a second. Gokhan's 4-1 in his last 5, making his UFC debut, and he's got a 9-2 record coming off a decision win. It's going to be a good fight. I want to see if Tanner can actually put up. But Tanner's fought against some good dudes in the UFC, and he's been put out, unfortunately. But he's fighting in his home state. It's going to be cool to see him back in there. I think he gets a win there and take that plus 132. Cash it to the bank, but I can't be super confident on it because it's heavyweights. You know what I say about heavyweights. It's the hardest division to pick winners in consistently. Just because anybody can go to sleep at any time. 1-5 on the confidence level of Tanner Boser can get his hand raised. Now, we got matchup number 7 here. It's a middleweight fight. I do not know a lot about both these fighters, so I just had to go and use their records and kind of base my wins off that. So it's not a very good fight to bet on unless you're willing to risk the money. And boy golly, is it going to be an okay fight still, though, if their backgrounds and the odds makers have it right. It'll be an okay fight. It's a middleweight fight between Julian LeBlanc and Robert Valentin. Robert's a negative 162 favorite. Julian plus 126. Julian's 5-0 in his last 5, making his UFC debut with a 10-2 record and on a 5-fight win streak. Fighting a guy in Robert who has some UFC experience and some MMA experience, but his record does not show it. He is 2-3 in his last 5, 0-3 in the UFC, and on a 3-fight lose streak. You wouldn't think he's the favorite. The thing is the guys that he fought, I wish I had them fully listed down here, but I don't. But the guys that he fought were not guys that he just got matched up against bad matchups to get the confidence level up there. That's why they're having him fight a guy who's making his UFC debut to see if the guy's got it or if Robert is just a full-on gatekeeper. I'm taking Robert to win this fight only because I think that his MMA experience is going to be too much for the adrenaline dump for a UFC debut. Now, I've been proven wrong in recent. I've been actually the last 2 I've been wrong on these style fights, but Robert, I think, gets it done, but I would not bet this fight. Stay away. 1-5 on the confidence level. He gets his hand raised. Now, that was your featured prelim bout of the night. I forgot to say that because I forgot to put a line through this when I made this, when I did my my research here, but we'll jump to the main card here. It's a featherweight bout between Dennis Buzaka and Marcio Barboza. Marcio is a -590 favorite, biggest favorite on the night on this card, versus Dennis Buzaka, who is the biggest underdog on this card at +390. Now, Buzaka, he is 2-3 in his last 5, 1-3 in the UFC, but it's over Chase Matthews, which is a good win. But he's coming off a decision loss, which I actually feel like he's coming off 2 decision losses. But I definitely probably wrote this down right, but that does not seem right in my head right now. But Marcio, 4-1 in his last 5, making his UFC debut with a 17-2 record and a 4-fight win streak. He's got MMA experience behind him against decent guys. I wouldn't say the promotions that he in were the most elite promotions, but having 19 fights coming into MMA and coming into your UFC debut, that's a good. And being 17-2, being 17-2 means you got something going for you. I'm picking Marcio to win. I just have not liked Dennis Buzaka's game at all. He has not looked like he can compete with some of these really good guys, and I feel like Barboza is just going to put him out. 3 out of 5 on the confidence level that he can get his hand raised. Matchup number 5 is a lightweight bout between Thiago Moraes and Gage Young. Gage is a -142 favorite, whereas Thiago Moraes is +112. Look, man, Thiago I thought was going to be a good top 15 fighter. At one point he made the rankings, but I don't understand how the drop-off just happened so fast. He's well-rounded. He's decent speed, decent striking, decent power, grappling. But when he gets against these top 15 fighters or even some of these good prospects as of late, he has not showed up. So, Thiago, with that +112, he's 2-3 in his last 5, 8-7 in the UFC, and coming off a KO loss to Jared Gordon, which I did not see happening whatsoever in that fight. His counterpart is 3-2 in his last 5, 1-1 in the UFC, coming off his first UFC win. I think he gets another one here. I don't think Thiago Moraes has got it anymore. If he ends up losing on Saturday too, it could be the end of his UFC run, unfortunately. Gage has got a little bit of leeway there, but I think Gage gets a good win. 1 out of 5 though on the confidence level, because if the old Thiago Moraes shows up, Gage might be in for a long 3 rounds and 15 minutes there, baby. All right. Match leg number 4, flyweight female fight. This is a badass fight. Jasmine Judavicius versus Karine Silva. Jasmine's a -330 favorite. Karine +240 underdog. Karine got exposed in her last fight, and then they match her up against someone like Jazz, who's got that type of striking. This is a bad matchup for Karine. Jasmine Judavicius, she is 4-1 in her last 5, 8-3 in her UFC record, and coming off a KO loss to Manion Farad, who is not a slouch to lose to, but she just got overconfident in that fight and did not use head movement and got caught really bad. But like I said, Manion Farad's got some crazy power and good striking, so it's no slouch to lose to. It's a learning experience for her. But Karine Silva, she 3-2 in her last 5, 5-2 in the UFC, coming off a decision loss to Macy Barber after Macy's medical issues. That's why it was a bad loss. Karine was supposed to be this output prospect that was just going to tear through everybody, and she got exposed, and then they match her up against someone like Jasmine Judavicius. She's going to get exposed again. Jasmine gets a big win on Saturday, 3 out of 5 on the console, so she can get her hand raised. Back to the lightweight division. I can't believe this guy's on the roster anymore. I thought they cut this guy, but we got Mandel Nawalo versus Jai Herbert. I cannot believe Jai Herbert is still in the UFC. I haven't seen him or heard of him fight in so long, so it's cool to see him back in there because I thought that guy had the hands to do it. We got Mandel making his UFC debut. He's 5-0 in his last 5, 14-3 record coming in here, and on a 5-fight win streak. That's a good record for that guy, in the -180 favorite. Jai Herbert, the +140 underdog. He's 2-2-1 in his last 5. 3-5-1 in the UFC, coming off a decision loss to Padilla. Once he said that was about a year ago now that we did see him back. But he got exposed against a guy who comes forward like that. But his game plan is a little different. He keeps you at distance. If he can't keep you at distance, he ain't winning that fight. But it's good to see Jai Herbert back in there. I love that plus 140 on him. I am taking that and cashing that to the bank. I am super confident he gets a win here. Only because Mandela is making his UFC debut. It is hard, and I mean hard, to make a UFC debut against a guy who has that many fights in the UFC. But he has, I don't have his total record down in here, but dude has a lot of fights, and he's up there in age, but he still's got the hands to do it. And we've seen that against Padilla. He still landed on him, but not as good. Oh, I forgot all about that fight till that happened. That was a good fight. All right, now jump to the co-main event of the evening. It's a bantamweight fight. We got Kyler, Enter the Matrix Phillips, versus Charles Jourdain. Jourdain is the hometown favorite at -154. Enter the Matrix is plus 120. Dude's got very good speed and very good hand-eye coordination to look like that Enter the Matrix style thing, man. He's got it, but Charles Jourdain is a long fighter, and especially at bantamweight. I just realized this is at bantamweight. I'm pretty sure Charles Jourdain is a 145 fighter, so if he moved down to bantamweight, which I just don't, in my head, I could have it wrong, but I wish I would have researched this a little more, but that bantamweight, if he's moving to bantamweight, he's going to be a big bantamweight. If he carries that power, it's going to be bad. I still pick Charles Jourdain to win. Kyler, his gas tank, man. There's something wrong with that gas tank. I think it's all the movement and all the stuff he does. And when he gets caught and people land the body shots in his last fight are what took him out, and it was ugly. So if he can avoid the body shots, he might have a good shot at outpointing Charles Jourdain. But Charles Jourdain lands and you go to sleep, man. It could happen, especially being the hometown favorite. 1 out of 5 on the confidence level. Charles can get his hand raised. What are we at right now? Like 16 minutes? Craziness right there. Crazy. Main event of the evening, boys and girls, cats and dogs. Let's get to this last page. It's on the other side here. We get a welterweight fight between Gilbert, Darino Burns, and Mike Malott. I don't know Mike's nickname. I wish I did. Mike is a -320 favorite, whereas Gilbert's a plus 235 underdog. Yo, man, Gilbert is literally 1-4 in his last 5, 15-9 in the UFC after that crazy run to the title to just get knocked out. And then he's on a 4-fight lose streak. So his UFC career is literally on the line on Saturday. And it's in a main event against Mike Malott. That's a bad matchup. Mike is 4-1 in his last 5, 6-1 in the UFC, and on a 3-fight win streak. Yeah, Mike got caught by Neil Magny because he didn't respect Neil Magny's hands. But that was a learning experience for Mike Malott. He's learned that he's got to respect people's hands. Gilbert might be done, but Gilbert still's got those crazy counter strikes that he's going to be going for. Gilbert might not walk forward anymore if Mike can get him backing up. But Mike is just a brutal striker too. So this is going to be a good fight. If Gilbert can win, that would be nuts. That plus 235 would be a good cash. But again, Mike's just really well-rounded, and Gilbert at his age and where he's at in his career, it's better just to stick on the Mike Malott side. If you don't like the fight like I do, I think Mike's going to win no matter what, essentially. Well, not a no matter what, a 3 out of 5 on the confidence level. But he's going to win this fight, whether it's a point fight or whether he knocks him out. I just think he's going to knock him out because Gilbert's he's not the same fighter, man, and it sucks. All right, y'all. Philly Flash is going to check out for the week. It's a good, quick week to get back into it after the bad week last week. See y'all next week. Shout out to Right Way Production Studios for always making this happen, and we'll see you next week, y'all.